Octates, translated by Seamus Heaney, great Irish poet who just died a very short time ago. He says, human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured. The innocent in jail beat on their bars together. The soldier's widow faints in the funeral home. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells.
Call that miracle self-healing, the other self-revealing double take of feeling.
If there's fire on the mountain, or lightning and storm, and a God speaks from the sky, it means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of new life at its turn. So it's my great privilege to introduce a spokesman for that new life, our next governor of California, Luis Rodriguez.
Thank you all. You know I'm a poet, so I will read some poetry. And I first of all want to say that we are serious in this campaign. We are going to work very hard to win. And here's the thing, we're going to win either way it goes. We're going to win because we're going to build, and we're going to leave something in this state that's never been done before. People have asked me a little bit about how I became politically active, and some people know that I came out of the streets of the East LA neighborhoods, and you may not know that when I was 16, I was arrested and put on a murderer's roll for the Hall of Justice jail. There was a big protest against the Vietnam War. I showed up, not knowing politics, really the party, but I got beaten up and taken in during that protest. It was called the Chicano Moratorium against the Vietnam War. It was a very important demonstration. They arrested hundreds of people, but after 2 or 3 hours, most of them were let go, except for about 6 of us. We were held louder, several days. I was put on murder's roll. They were going to charge us for the murders of the people who died in that protest. And I had a cell next to Charles Manson. The first night I was there, somebody put a razor blade to my neck. Now I only mention all this because I got politicized that night. And I got politicized because I realized that everything I was doing prior to that, violence against my own people, drugs, everything, was counter-revolutionary and was serving our communities, and I began to open up and wake up, and that's important, to wake up. One of the things that happened is that Charles Manson, you might not know, was protected. He was the only white guy in the whole murderer's row section of black and brown people. People were trying to kill him, they protected him, make sure nothing was going to happen to Charles Manson. But if I woke up with my throat cut the next morning, who would care? My value as a human being was far less than Charles Manson. I wrote a poem during that time, very badly written, I will admit. I fixed it up years later by way of disclosure, so you know. But I had to see what this poem is. It's called The Calling, and I'm going to share it with you. The calling came to me while I languished in my room, while I withered away my youth to jail cells and damp, fighting fields. It called me to life out of captivity in a street-scarred and tattooed place I call body. Until that I wait silently, a deafening clatter in my head, voices all around, hidden from America's eyes, a brown boy without a name. I was singing to a solitary tape recorder music, never to be sung.
I would write my thoughts in scrambled English. I would take photos in my mind, plan out new parks, bushy green,
country free, new places to play and think, waiting. Then it came, the calling. It brought me out of my room. It forced me to escape night captors and street prisons. It called me to war, to be writer, to be scientist, and march with the soldiers of change. It called me from the shadows, out of the wreckage of my barrio, from among those who did not exist. I waited all of 60 years for this time. Somehow, unexpected, I was called. So, thank you. I was called to be a revolutionary, and I've been a revolutionary ever since, and that ain't gonna stop. And so, it's very important, thank you, to really love people, because I was young, and when you're young, you can open up to that world, but whatever happens, don't lose that dream. And that's part of what I hope to carry forward as we run for the governor here, race here in the state of California. I've got another poem I'm going to read, and it's about being mislabeled, or when you're an outcast and you're in trouble, how people tend to put you in a box. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay being an outcast and in trouble, but I'm going to make my own mantle. I'm going to rename myself. I'm going to make it something. Nobody's going to criminalize it or push it aside or marginalize it. This country could use a little bit more trouble, you understand? So, poems called Piece by Piece. Piece by piece they tear at you, peeling away layers of being, lying about who you are, speaking for your dreams. In the squalor of their eyes, you are an outlaw, dressing you in a jacket of lies, tailor-made in steel. You fit their perfect picture. Take it off, make your own mantle, question the interrogators, eyeball the death in their gaze. Say you won't succumb when they rename you. Say you won't accept their codes, their colors, their putrid morals. Here you have a way. Here you can sing victory. Here you are not a conquered race, perpetual victim, the sullen face in a thunderstorm. Hands, minds, they're carving out a sanctuary. Use these weapons against them. Use your given gifts. They are not stone. I wrote a poem about leadership. And I feel that everybody's got a leadership in them. But a leader is also somebody who has to best represent as many of the people as possible. And a leader always finds the seed of leadership in others. And so, to me, yes, we make leaders. We continually engender leaders, and leaders have got to keep rising out of every struggle. So I'm going to read you this poem I wrote. I hope you like it. It's actually my latest poem. It's never been published. When a leader appears, the earth springs into song, flowered with new hope. A bright beginning, even from a terribly seeded past, where dust and stones are a bare sowing ground. Wise ones have long declared leaders are people who see farther and feel deeper. Such leaders know there's a design to our lives, braided with threads of the future. We don't just make history, we are called to it, just as the fleeting or slanted become solid and direct. Aspiring to be a leader, you become a leader, turning what's possible into what's next. Not just creating a nest for oneself, made of familiars who agree or keep one comfortable. Not just basking in the spotlight or the imagined power, but by cultivating character, courage, discipline, and humbleness. Leaders carry this sacrifice with grace. Always remember the unrecoverable moments with loved ones, with family, while also giving to the whole, even at the expense of one's time, one's considerations. All proper sacrifices are rooted in the sacred. Blessed and cursed, loved and hated, seen well or lied about, no leader can escape the human energies that both destroy and lift up. Yet true leaders are matched for this challenge. There is a leader seed planted before birth and carefully nurtured by angels, by elements, by the alignments of universal sway. You feel this in the bones. Somewhere the message is, I was meant to be here. The fact is, leadership is in everyone. They emerge from the human seed. Yet as deeper truths go, leaders see farther and feel deeper. Just like the rest of us, only more. Turning time into learning, into passion, into revelation. They bargain with God for how to be in the world. Learning for learning, passion for passion, revelation for revelation. And again, I want to thank you, and I want you to support the Green Party in this effort of trying to change the state of California in a battle for a new California, the California that not only we dream about, but we can make real. There shouldn't be any more gulf between the better, healthy, clean, and green world and the reality that we're in. It has to be the same. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to align all these things, our visions, our dreams, our hopes, and aspirations to what we really have. And that's what the new state of California has to be about. I'm going to end with this poem because people have also asked me, how did I get into poetry? How did I get interested in poetry? I had no idea what a poem was. I never heard of poetry going to school. I didn't go to the kind of schools where people even bother with you with poetry. But poetry, I think, is in our bones. It's deep. As Larry says, even when the Irish did the battles and they bought poetry, it's actually in every culture. Everybody had poetry in them. And unfortunately, in our culture, poetry gets marginalized. It gets pushed aside. It gets forgotten. We got to bring it back to the center. We need more poetry. We need more poetry right in this work, in the Green Party, in the new governor's campaign, and we need it in every battle. So let's bring it back. Battle with the words. Thank you, Larry, for that. And so I'm going to read you this poem about the first time I ever went to a poetry reading. And just so you know, I was 18 years old. It was in Berkeley, California. And I was on heroin, and this poem, this incident kind of really changed my life. And it goes like this. It's called Fevered Shapes, and it's dedicated to the three poets I heard that night. Some of them you know. One, Jose Montoya, the Chicano godfather of poetry, who just recently passed. A teacher, mentor, and a very important person in our struggle to be language-driven and image-driven and full of life, and he's gone. But he's never really going to be gone. David Henderson, who was the leading African-American performance poet at the time, and another great late poet, the Puerto Rican Pedro Pietri. Can you imagine, and if you guys know these people, being in the same room with them three reading? It was powerful. So the poem goes like this. I wallowed in a needle-spawned world, addicted to dope and the crazy life, and yet there I was in Berkeley for my first poetry reading. I was 18 with a bullet, as they say. Earlier I had flown on a plane for the first time. Sure, I survived half a dozen gun assaults, cops knocking me around, ODs, blades to my neck in jail cells, homeless and death streets and beatdowns and body of brawls. But flying? That scared me to death. I sat there in a crowded cafe not knowing what to expect. Poetry? I'd never heard this before. Or I had written lines, vignettes, images, fears, thoughts. I didn't know they were poems. I had no idea what a poem was. First up on the mic was Jose Montoya with Chicano prayers of old pachucos and strained loves and guitar solos and Indian hands and cornflower. Then David Henderson took the stage, gleaming urban black streets, racist stairs, Black Panther fury, and Southern cooking. Finally, Pedro Pietri came up, Neo-Rican wordmeister, flashing and embodying his experiences with poems located in phone booths and real-life wisdom that made us laugh and shake our heads. I had never heard words spoken this way. More music than talk, more fevered shapes than sentences, more Che and Malcolm than Shakespeare. These poems came for me, lasted my throat, demanded my life savings, taking me for a sunset ride. These poems were graffiti scars along the alleys and trash-strewn tunnels of my body, the metaphoric methadone for the heroin hurling through my bloodstream, the lifeline I already had inside and didn't know. These poems were pool sticks darkening gangways, a swirl of sunrise after the graveyard shift, a blood-black yellow behind torn curtains, a child screaming and nobody coming to help. These poems were shadowed with heavy stars without sorrows, without grief, the moon without sky, unknown melodies.
the falling inside that happens when you push razor onto wrist. They came for me as I sank into my suicide, while fidgeting in a chair, inching under the skin, as I wondered why I even came. Jose, David, and Pedro, I was never the same after this. They came for me, and I've never let go. They came for me, I've perspired holes ever since. They came for me in all my addictions, my sorry-ass lies, my falling masks, my pissed-off wives, neglected children, angry friends, and back-to-back failures to never ever take them away. Thanks again, I really appreciate y'all being here. Dedication, campaign, to all the legislators, Congress, in the state of California. This battle and win our new state of California for everyone. This end poverty, this prison system. Let's make clean and green the reality for everyone in the state of California. Thank you all very much.
Who's the next person? Okay, sorry.
Hello. We're here on behalf of part of a group working Justice for Andy Lopez, and thank you for giving us this time to talk a little bit about what's going on. And we have some petitions that are going to be passed around. I'll talk a little bit about that. It's kind of an improvisational moment for us, so thank you for your patience. We've been a group called, we're calling ourselves Andy Lopez, the organizing group, and it consists of individuals, including Nicole here, who her son was Andy's best friend, so she's close with the family, and some other individuals, not a formal group. We're working directly with the family. We've been working on the marches and actions that have been going on the last few weeks around town. And we're specifically calling on DA Ravitch to arrest, indict Sheriff Gilhouse for the murder of Andy Lopez. That's one of our primary campaigns, or whatever you want to call it. And that's what we've been focusing on. We're also focusing on creating a park at the location where he was murdered. It's just a vacant field there. And so those are the two primary things, and those are the two things we have a petition for, which someone's going to pass those around in a minute. So we're having a big meeting on Tuesday. I want to announce that here at the Arlene Francis Center at 6 o'clock. We're trying to form a justice coalition for Andy Lopez. We're inviting other community leaders, organizations, people who are in organizations who want to have a bigger role in what's going on in this movement that we're creating for justice for Andy Lopez. And so if you're interested in that, you're welcome to come. We're going to focus again on those two major points that we're striving for right now, but we're also going to open it up to other actions and things that need to be addressed, such as review committees, installing cameras on sheriff cars. I mean, there are a lot of things generally about the militarization of the police, and working on that overall police brutality issue in the county and beyond, of course, but we're focusing here due to the murder of Andy Lopez recently. I'm going to pass it on to Nicole here. Yeah, first I should announce our most official, coming up on December 3rd, we are having an official action directly on the fundraiser for District Attorney Jo Ravitch. She is denying to do anything at all until she receives the investigation from the police department, and at that point she will do due process as process is done, and we are saying no, that she needs to indict and arrest him now. So we're going to be at her fundraiser on December 3rd at the Veterans Memorial Building in Santa Rosa, protesting that demand. So there's flyers for that around if you'd like to participate and spread the word. And there'll be something going on the 22nd, which is the 1-month anniversary of murder. Nothing official has been planned yet, but there will be some actions, and there will probably be a vigil as well at the site. If you haven't been out there yet, you should see the altar and the area where it happened, and check out the community there, which is important. We're trying to build the community outside of that to get involved, because we're all part of the same community, really, even though we do tend to live very separately. And so we're calling on your community to join our community and to become one big community in this fight that is about all of us, and it's about the children, and it's about their future, which is very important to remember. This is for the child who was murdered by an overzealous gun expert. Okay.
My name is Nicole Vera. My son has been best friends with Andy Lopez since they're in kindergarten. Andy was at my house every weekend throughout school, and up until they're about 7th grade when they started to get the attitude they don't want to be around their parents. And I still make sure I checked on him every day. The day that he was murdered, I remember picking up my son, telling him, something had happened, we can't go down that street like I did every day, because I would always drive down Moreland just to see if I make sure I seen Andy walking home, or some of the other kids just kind of watching out for them. And my son told me, he goes, well, how's Andy going to get home if it's blocked off? I said, no, he'll be fine. He'll get home. Little to know that morning I had to explain to my son that he did not make it home. That morning when I told my son after, and he processed it, I told him, so what do you want to do? He told me, I want to help his family. I want to make something happen. I said, okay. Got in contact with a few people. That's how I ended up meeting Terry. And we started getting these marches going, these protests going. Decided this needs to stop. The Sheriff's Department has been doing this for way too long. And we are putting our foot down. Our community is done with it. And one of the things that, along with my son, that we are going to try to take littler steps is these kids need to get involved. They need to understand what can happen, what changes they can do. So I met along with one of our other partners. We went around to a couple of schools, and we're going to have the kids start little clubs within their schools, and hopefully be able to get speakers in there throughout their meetings and stuff to talk to them about what they can do to make changes in different laws or things in the community, to get them to basically open up and talk about it. So we have that going on along with our park and getting Jailhouse indicted and arrested. And we have one of the high schools already agreed to do that. We've got some students that will be getting involved. And I think that's a great idea for these kids to know what they can do, what they can change, because they are our future. They're the ones that are going to be running things, not us. So by the time I'm older, I look at it this way. My son's he's going to be telling me what to do. He can be going to college to become an attorney, he can become a DA. And that's what I want these kids to know, that's what they're going to have to work towards. That change is going to have to go through them. Has to start somewhere. And we're starting it now, but for them as they get older, to continue going to school, to continue to make this process, get these people out of office that don't belong there, like Joe Ravitch, that definitely does not belong there. Hopefully when we get these meetings going for these kids, they can have the opportunity to meet some leaders, local leaders, and people that have ideas or knowledge that can help them as well. So, thank you, everybody.
We have petitions to waiving them. Is it time to pass them around? Yes. Please sign that one for the park, one for the indictment, calling on the DA. And also under the basket, we're also taking donations. There is an Andy Lopez Memorial Fund at Exchange Bank. And as you know, there's not a lot of money to throw around in these communities, and the family and every little bit helps, and it also helps people who are working with the family to do things. So thank you for that. And one last thing I do want to say, because I know there's some poets and artists and things like that in the room, that I'm also part of an organization called 100,000 Poets for Change, which is about empowering and encouraging artists, poets, musicians, dancers, all types of creative artists to get involved in the community, socially, politically, become activists, to take a lead. As Luis was saying, we are leaders, poets can be leaders, and they have been in other cultures in the past and still are in other cultures, and we need to take that role back in this country and become more engaged as artists. It doesn't mean we have to behave like politicians. We are artists and we express ourselves as artists, but we can be active and socially engaged and get involved in things that matter. So that's my other thing. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. If you want to get involved, remember Tuesday at 6 o'clock, we're having a meeting here, and we're going to be working on specific things, and we welcome people to join the coalition, the Justice Coalition for Randy Lopez. And there's all kinds of things developing and moving toward our goals, so please join us if you have interest in that.